Security for this year's Soccer World Cup has been brought into sharp focus after an attack on players in Africa. Gunmen opened fire on a bus carrying Togo's national football team heading to the African Nations Cup in Angola. The host nation has called it an act of terrorism.
We were machine gunned like dogs. They were armed to the teeth. As soon as we heard the first gunshot, we threw ourselves on the ground. At that moment, none of us thought we were going to make it out alive. I had 2 bullets in my back, but I was lucky.
Days before the start of the 27th edition of the African Cup of Nations, the bus carrying the Togo national team was attacked by terrorists, leaving 3 people dead and an entire continent wounded. The build-up. On September 4th, 2006, the Confederation of African Football made a series of announcements concerning the host selection of the biggest footballing event of the continent. According to CAF, or CAF, the 3 upcoming African Cup of Nations starting from 2010 would be held in Angola, Gabon and Equatorial Guinea in a co-hosted edition, and Libya, respectively. Nigeria was selected as the reserve host in the event of any of these 4 nations not meeting the hosting requirement. Angola was getting ready for the event, so were the teams that were about to compete, including the Togolese. Led by their star man Emmanuel Adebayor, the Sparrowhawks had already proven themselves 4 years prior by qualifying for the World Cup for the first time in their histories. The Angolan Civil War was over, but the country still had open wounds caused by it. Many regions and provinces were scarred by terrorists and separatist groups, including the infamous Cabinda province. The Confederation of African Football knew full well that the region was war-torn and dangerous. The attack. On January 8th, the Togolese took to the road to go to Cabinda. 2-bus convoy, one carrying the players and staff, the other loaded up with luggage, was accompanied by Angolan forces. As they were making their way through the Mayombe rainforest, all hell broke loose. Armed men from the Front for the Liberation of the Enclave of Cabinda, commonly known as FLEC, started mowing down everyone in sight with gunfire, including the bus that carried 23 players and 11 staff members. Immediately recognizing what was happening, everyone in the bus threw themselves to the ground. Unfortunately, the driver of the team bus, Mario Ajua, couldn't react fast enough. Shot by the terrorists, Ajua lost his life immediately, making the already minuscule chance of an attempt at escaping downright impossible. Security personnel accompanying the team fired back, but their numbers were limited. Inside the bus, there was nothing but fear and pain. Reserve goalkeeper Kojovi Obilale, center back Serge Akakpo, manager Hubert Velud, assistant manager Amelete Abalo, a journalist and sports commentator working for Togolese television, Stanislas Oklu, were all shot, amongst others. Abalo and Oklu were rushed to a nearby hospital, but they tragically lost their lives the following day. After getting machine gunned like dogs for 20 minutes, as Thomas Dosevi would later describe, the attack ceased and the terrorists fled the scene. The gravity of the situation unfolded shortly after, and according to Mustafa Salifu, an Aston Villa player back then, it could have easily been worse. When we crossed the border into Angola, the 2 buses swapped places as we drove into the forest. If that had not happened, there would have been more deaths. Midfielder Richmond Forsen told the same thing to French television. It was the bus carrying our baggage, which was in front of us, which they fired on the most. They thought we were in the bus in front. The death toll of the attack was limited to 3. The number of players and staff injured by bullets and shrapnel pieces was 7. The worst among the physically injured was Obilale. The bullets had damaged the goalkeeper's spine, intestines, liver, and bladder. After spending months in intensive care, Obilale was discharged with mandatory physical rehabilitation in sight. But football was a thing of the past for him now, as he had to walk on crutches. Obilale survived, but he and every single person who was unfortunate enough to be there was wounded for life. The aftermath. The events that took place on that fateful day were horrendous, to say the least. But what happened afterwards was not all that great either. Not even 24 hours after the heinous attack took place, while people were questioning how in the world an international football team could have been gunned down for 20 minutes straight, Emmanuel Adebayor was live on BBC Radio 5. I think a lot of players want to leave. I don't think they want to be at this tournament anymore because they have seen their death already. After a meeting with his teammates, the world-famous striker set their priorities straight.
The next race at the moment is all about concentration, is on the funeral rites and everything. We'll wait and see what will happen. We just have to do our ceremony and everything. And after that, we'll see what we're going to do.
Postponing or even delaying the tournament for some time wasn't even on the table as an option. But more frighteningly, Ghana and the Ivory Coast declared that they want to play their games in Cabinda as scheduled before. Both the Togolese squad and the government found themselves between a rock and a hard place. Some players wanted to play to honor their fallen and injured friends, while others wanted to return. After a 3-day-long national mourning, the Sparrowhawks wanted to get back to the tournament, a request refused by the Confederation of African Football. This was not the only action taken against the Togolese by the governing body of African football. On the day of the attack, officials representing the Confederation came up with multiple declarations abdicating responsibility and almost accusing the Togolese for not following the security guidelines. The CAF went ahead and banned the Togo national team from joining the 2 following editions of the tournament, stating the Togolese government's involvement in the affair as an infringement. The mind-boggling decision was overruled by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Even before all was said and done, the Togolese were torn apart. 20 minutes was all it took for a whole nation to lose its best generation of footballers, to either the attack itself or to its lingering psychological effects. To this day, no one knows why the team didn't fly to Angola's capital as suggested, and instead took the road that ended in a nightmare. One thing is sure though, it was one of the worst football disasters in history.
If you enjoyed this story, click on the videos on your screen and keep the drama going.